evening was warm, and she watched the stars come out one by one. At 16, Amy had lived on this ranch her whole life. She knew every hill, every tree, and every animal that lived here. Her father, Jake Martinez, worked as an engineer before. He married her mother and moved to the ranch. Her mother, Lisa Carter, was a scientist who studied alien life forms. Ever since Earth made contact with other worlds 3 years ago, Lisa had been very busy. She worked with samples and data that came from faraway planets. Amy was different. From other kids her age. She could feel things that others could not. When animals were hurt or scared, she knew it without looking. When her horse was sick last winter, Amy felt the pain in her own body. Her parents said she was special, but Amy thought it made life harder sometimes. The night sky was clear and beautiful. Amy loved to sit outside and look at the stars. She wondered what kinds of creatures lived on those distant worlds. Her mother had shown her pictures of some aliens. They looked very different from humans. Some had many arms, others had no arms at all. Some were made of gas, and others looked like living rocks. A bright light suddenly streaked across the sky. Amy jumped up from the fence. The light was much bigger and brighter than a normal shooting star. It left a long white trail behind it as it flew overhead. The light seemed to be falling toward the hills behind their ranch. Amy ran toward the house. "Mom, Dad, come quick!" she shouted. Jake came out of the barn where he had been fixing a tractor. Lisa rushed out of the house, still holding a tablet computer. They both looked up at the sky where Amy was pointing. "That was no meteor," Lisa said. Her voice was serious. "It was moving too slow and in the wrong direction." Jake nodded. "Could be a spacecraft. We should call the authorities." "Wait," Amy said. "I want to see what it was first. It landed somewhere up in the North Hills." "Absolutely not," Jake said firmly. "If that's an alien ship, it could be dangerous. We don't know if they're friendly or not." But Amy felt something pulling at her mind. It was like a voice calling for help, but not with words. The feeling was so strong that it made her chest hurt. Something up in those hills needed her help badly. "Please, Dad, I can feel that something is wrong. Something is hurt up there." Lisa looked at her daughter carefully. She knew about Amy's special ability to sense things. "What exactly do you feel, sweetheart?" "Pain," Amy said, "and fear. Something is dying up there, Mom. It's calling for help." Jake and Lisa looked at each other. They had learned to trust Amy's feelings over the years. Her special sense had helped them find lost cattle and had warned them about storms before the Weather Service did. "Okay," Jake said slowly, "but we go together and we take the truck. And if I say we leave immediately." They loaded flashlights, a first aid kit, and Jake's hunting rifle into their pickup truck. The drive up the old dirt road into the hills took 20 minutes. Amy sat in the front seat, directing them toward where she felt the strongest pull. "Turn left at that big rock," she said. "It's close now." They parked the truck and walked the rest of the way on foot. Amy led them through the trees and up a steep slope. At the top of the ridge, they found what they were looking for. A crater about 30 feet wide had been burned into the ground. The grass and trees around it were blackened and smoking. In the center of the crater lay something that took their breath away. The creature was about the size of a large horse, but it looked nothing like any animal on Earth. Its body was covered in scales that seemed to be made of clear crystal. Even in the dark, the scales caught the moonlight and threw it back in beautiful colors. The creature had 4 legs and a long neck, like a dragon from old stories. Where wings should be, there were thin sheets of energy that flickered and glowed. The creature was badly hurt. Several of its crystal scales were cracked and bleeding a silver liquid. Its energy wings were barely glowing, and its breathing was shallow and quick. My God, Lisa whispered. I've never seen anything like it. Amy walked toward the creature without fear. She could feel its pain as if it were her own. The creature lifted its head and looked at her with large, dark eyes that seemed to hold intelligence and sadness. Amy, stay back, Jake warned, raising his rifle. But Amy was already kneeling beside the creature. When she placed her hand on its crystal scales, something amazing happened. A warm, golden light began to glow from where her skin touched the creature. The light spread across its body like water. The creature's wounds began to close. The cracked scales became smooth and whole again. Its energy wings grew brighter and stronger. In just a few minutes, the creature was completely healed. But something else happened too. Amy felt a new presence in her mind. It was gentle and warm, like having a friend sitting beside her. She could sense the creature's thoughts and feelings, and it could sense hers. The creature stood up slowly. It was beautiful and graceful, despite its size. It lowered its head and gently touched Amy's forehead with its snout. Pictures flashed through Amy's mind. She saw stars and planets, great ships flying through space, and creatures like this one living in cities made of crystal and light. His name is Prism, Amy said softly. He's not from around here. His people are called the Lumina. Jake lowered his rifle. Can you understand what he's saying? Not words exactly, Amy replied, but I can feel what he means. He was running away from something bad, something that hunts his people. His ship was damaged, and he crashed here. Prism made a sound like wind chimes singing. He nuzzled Amy gently, and she could feel his gratitude and affection. We need to help him, Amy said. He has nowhere else to go. Lisa was already taking pictures with her tablet. This is incredible. A living crystal-based life form with energy manipulation abilities. The scientific community will go crazy when they see this. Mom, you can't tell anyone yet, Amy said quickly. Prism is scared. His people have been hunted for a long time. If the wrong people find out about him, they might hurt him. Jake looked worried. Amy, we can't hide something this big. The government has satellites that probably saw the crash. They'll be here soon. As if his words had called them, the sound of helicopters filled the air. Bright searchlights swept across the hills, moving toward their location. Too late, Lisa said. They're already here. Prism pressed close to Amy, his energy wings folding around her protectively. She could feel his fear, but also his trust in her. Somehow, in the space of a few minutes, they had become bonded in a way that Amy didn't fully understand. The helicopters landed in the field below the ridge. Soldiers in military uniforms climbed out and began hiking up toward the crater. Their leader was a tall man with gray hair and stern eyes. I am Colonel Frank Hayes, he announced when he reached them. This area is now under military jurisdiction. Please step away from the alien creature. Amy stood up but stayed close to Prism. His name is Prism, and he's not dangerous. He's hurt and scared. Colonel Hayes looked at the creature with professional interest. Miss, that alien could be carrying diseases or could be hostile. For your own safety, you need to move away from it immediately. No, Amy said firmly. I won't leave him. He needs me. The colonel's expression hardened. This is not a request, young lady. This is a matter of national security. Jake stepped forward. Colonel, this is our land, and this is our daughter. We have rights. Not anymore, Colonel Hayes replied. Under the Alien Contact Act of 2085, any extraterrestrial life form found on Earth becomes government property for the safety of our planet. Amy felt Prism's distress growing stronger. The creature's energy wings began to glow brighter, responding to his emotions. The soldiers raised their weapons nervously. Please, don't hurt him, Amy begged. He's just scared. If you leave us alone, I can keep him calm." Colonel Hayes studied Amy carefully. "You can communicate with it?" "Yes, sir. We're connected somehow. When I touch him, I can feel what he feels." The colonel's eyes lit up with interest. This was an unexpected development. A human who could communicate with an alien could be very useful. "Very well," he said finally. "We'll set up a temporary research station here. But the creature comes with us for proper study. And you, young lady, will help us understand it." Amy looked at her parents, then at Prism. The creature's dark eyes seemed to say that he trusted her to make the right choice. She took a deep breath. "Okay," she said. "But I stay with him? Where he goes, I go." Colonel Hayes smiled coldly. "I think we can arrange that." As the military began setting up their equipment around the crater, Amy sat beside Prism and tried to comfort him. She had no idea that her life had just changed forever, or that the bond she shared with this beautiful creature would soon become the most important thing in the world. Every morning, she woke up in a small trailer that the military had placed near their house. Government scientists and soldiers were always around, watching and taking notes. Amy spent most of her time with Prism. The beautiful creature had grown stronger and healthier since that first night. His crystal scales now shone like diamonds in the sunlight, and his energy wings could lift him high into the air. But he never tried to fly away. The bond between him and Amy kept them close together. Dr. Neil Brooks was the main scientist studying Prism. He was a thin man with thick glasses who asked Amy hundreds of questions every day. Amy tried to answer them, but some things were hard to explain. "When you touch Prism, what exactly happens?" Dr. Brooks asked for the 20th time that week. Amy sighed. "I can feel what he feels. I can see pictures in my mind of his memories. And he can understand my thoughts, too. But how does this connection work? Is it telepathy? Some kind of energy transfer?" "I don't know," Amy said honestly. "It just happens." Through her bond with Prism, Amy had learned amazing things about his people. The Lumina were an ancient race that lived among the stars. They were guardians who helped keep balance in the universe. Each Lumina could control different types of energy: light, heat, electricity, and even the forces that held atoms together. Prism was special, even among his own kind. He was what the Lumina called a heart-bearer. This meant he could connect with the power of all Lumina everywhere. But this ability only worked when he had a strong emotional bond with someone who truly cared about him. The military people didn't understand this. They thought Prism was just a powerful weapon that could be controlled and used. Colonel Hayes had been replaced by General Patricia Stone, a harder woman who cared only about making Prism into a tool for Earth's defense. The creature's energy output is incredible, General Stone said during one of her visits. "If we could harness that power, we could build weapons that would make us the strongest nation on Earth." Amy didn't like General Stone. The woman looked at Prism the way someone might look at a fancy car or a new computer. She didn't see him as a living being with feelings and thoughts. Dr. Susan Park was even worse. She was a scientist who specialized in controlling alien minds. She had been working on something she called a neural control collar. Amy had seen the plans by accident when she walked into the lab. Early one morning, the collar was a metal band covered with wires and small machines. It was designed to go around Prism's neck and send signals directly into his brain. The signals would override his natural thoughts and make him obey commands. Amy had tried to tell her parents about the collar, but they were being watched too closely. Jake and Lisa were allowed to visit Amy for only 1 hour each day. The rest of the time, they had to stay on their ranch while soldiers guarded them. "We're going to fight this in court," Lisa had promised Amy during one visit. What they're doing isn't right. Prism isn't a weapon. He's a living creature with rights. But the courts moved slowly, and General Stone was getting impatient. Amy could feel Prism's growing worry. He knew something bad was coming, even if he didn't know what it was. The worst part was that Prism blamed himself for the situation. Through their bond, Amy could feel his guilt. He thought that by staying with her, he was putting her and her family in danger. "It's not your fault," Amy told him one evening as they sat together in the special enclosure the military had built. "I chose to help you. I chose to stay with you." Prism made his gentle wind chime sound and nuzzled her cheek. In her mind, she saw images of his home world, a beautiful planet covered with crystal cities that glowed with soft light. She saw other lumina flying through the air like living stars. But she also saw darker memories, black ships attacking luminal worlds, creatures made of shadow and hunger destroying everything in their path. Prism's people fleeing across the galaxy, looking for safe places to hide. "Who are they?" Amy asked. "The ones who hunt your people?" The answer came not in words, but in feeling. Terror, hatred, emptiness that wanted to consume everything. Prism didn't know their real name, but Amy understood they were called the Devourers. "They're still out there, aren't they?" Amy said, "They're still looking for you." Prism's energy wings dimmed with sadness. Yes, they were still hunting. And someday, they might find Earth. The next morning, Amy woke up to find soldiers surrounding her trailer. Dr. Park was there with her neural caller, and General Stone was giving orders. "It's time for a special test," General Stone announced. "We need to see what the creature is really capable of." Amy felt a chill run down her spine. "What kind of test?" "The kind that requires full cooperation," Dr. Park said with a cold smile. "Don't worry, the creature won't be harmed." They took Amy and Prism to a large building that had been constructed on the ranch. Inside was a room with thick metal walls and an observation window. Prism was led into the room while Amy was taken to watch from behind the glass. "What are you doing?" Amy demanded. "Let me go to him." "I'm afraid that's not possible," Dr. Park said. She was holding a dark gun. "We need to conduct this test under controlled conditions." Before Amy could react, Dr. Park shot her with a tranquilizer dart. Amy felt the world spinning around her as the drug took effect. The last thing she saw before everything went black was Prism pressing against the glass, his eyes wide with fear and confusion. When Amy woke up, she was in the medical bay. Her head felt fuzzy, and her body was weak from the drugs. But worse than that was the terrible emptiness in her mind. The warm presence of Prism's thoughts was gone. "Where is he?" Amy asked the nurse who was checking her pulse. "The creature is safe," the nurse said without looking at her. "You need to rest now." But Amy knew something was terribly wrong. She could feel a dull ache where her connection to Prism used to be. It was like having a piece of her heart cut out. Late that night, Amy snuck out of the medical bay. The guards thought she was still unconscious, so it was easy to slip past them. She made her way to the main laboratory building. Through a window, she saw Prism in a smaller room surrounded by machines and computers. Around his neck was Dr. Park's neural control collar. The collar was glowing with red lights, and wires connected it to a control panel where Dr. Park was working. Prism looked different. His beautiful crystal scales seemed dull and lifeless. His energy wings barely glowed. But worst of all, his eyes looked empty. The intelligence and warmth that Amy knew so well were gone. Dr. Park was speaking into a microphone. "Subject responds well to basic commands. Neural pathways are successfully overridden. Beginning weapons testing." Amy watched in horror as Dr. Park pressed buttons on her control panel. Prism's body began to glow with energy. He turned toward a metal target on the far side of the room. A beam of pure light shot from his scales, cutting the target in half like it was made of paper. "Excellent," Dr. Park said. "Power output is even higher than we hoped. The creature is completely under our control." Amy felt sick. This wasn't Prism anymore. It was just his body being used as a weapon. The real Prism, the gentle creature who loved to watch sunsets and made sounds like singing crystals, was trapped somewhere deep inside his own mind. She had to find a way to save him. But how could one 16-year-old girl fight against an entire military operation? As Amy crept back to her trailer, she made a promise to herself and to Prism. She would find a way to free him, no matter what it cost. The military had made a terrible mistake. They thought they could steal her dragon and use him as a weapon. They were about to learn how wrong they were. But first, Amy had to figure out how to remove that collar. And she had to do it before the military moved Prism to a more secure location. General Stone had mentioned something about a facility in Nevada where they planned to study him further. Time was running out, and Amy was the only one who could save her friend. The bond between them might be blocked by the collar, but it wasn't. Broken. Somewhere inside that controlled body, the real Prism was waiting for her to rescue him. Amy fell asleep, planning and hoping. She didn't know that her tears that night glowed faintly in the darkness, or that far away in space, ancient beings felt a disturbance in the cosmic balance. The theft of a heart-bearer was not just a crime against one creature. It was a crime against the universe itself. And the universe was beginning to take notice. And went to the laboratory building. She would sit outside his window and try to connect with him through their bond. But the neural collar blocked everything. It was like trying to talk to someone through a thick wall. During the day, she pretended to cooperate with the scientists. She answered their questions and acted like she didn't know what they had done. But inside, she was planning. She studied the guards' routines and learned where they kept the keys to different rooms. Her parents visited when they could, but they were worried and frustrated. The courts had denied their requests to stop the military's experiments. The government. Lawyers said that national security was more important than one family's feelings. "We're not giving up," Jake promised Amy during one visit. "Lisa has contacted every scientist and human rights group she knows. Someone will help us." But Amy knew that help might come too late. She had overheard General Stone talking about moving Prism to Nevada soon. Once he was gone, Amy might never see him again. Then everything changed. Amy was eating breakfast in her trailer when every alarm on the base started going off at once. Soldiers ran everywhere, shouting orders and pointing at the sky. Amy looked out her window and saw something that made her heart stop. Dark shapes were moving across the morning sky. They were huge, bigger than any airplane Amy had ever seen. The ships were black as midnight and shaped like enormous claws reaching down from space. Amy ran outside. No one tried to stop her because everyone was too busy staring at the alien fleet. There were dozens of the black ships hanging in the air. Above Earth like storm clouds, General Stone was yelling into a radio. "How many ships? What do you mean you can't count them all? Get me a connection to Space Command immediately." Dr. Brooks grabbed Amy's arm. "You can communicate with aliens. Do you know what these things are?" Amy looked at the ships and felt cold fear wash over her. She recognized them from Prism's memories. "They're devourers," she whispered. "They found him." "What are devourers?" Dr. Brooks demanded. "The things that hunt Prism's people. They destroy planets and eat everything on them. They came here because they sensed Prism." General Stone overheard her. "Are you saying these aliens are here for our creature?" "He's not your creature," Amy shouted. "His name is Prism, and yes, they came for him. But they won't just take him and leave. Devourers don't leave anything alive. As if to prove her point, smaller ships began dropping from the massive mother ships. These scouts were faster and looked like flying knives. They headed toward Major. Cities around the world. Reports started coming in over the radio. The scout ships were attacking military bases and shooting down any aircraft that came near them. But they weren't trying to destroy everything. They seemed to be looking for something specific. Amy knew what they were looking for. They were hunting for Prism's energy signature. The neural collar might be blocking his connection to Amy, but it couldn't hide him from the Devourers. They had been tracking the Lumina across the galaxy for thousands of years. "We need to evacuate the base," General Stone ordered. "Get the creature ready for transport immediately." "No," Amy said urgently. "You don't understand. Moving Prism won't help. They can track him anywhere on Earth, and using that collar on him makes it worse." "What do you mean?" Dr. Park asked. She had been working on her control systems when the alarm started. Amy tried to explain something she barely understood herself. "Prism isn't just any Lumina. He's a heart-bearer. That means he's connected to all of his people, even across space. The collar is blocking that connection and making him vulnerable." "Vulnerable to what?" "To them." Amy pointed at the black ships. "The Devourers can control minds too, but they can only do it to Lumana who are cut off from their people. The collar you put on Prism is doing exactly what they need." General Stone looked confused and angry. "Are you saying our control device is helping the enemy?" Before Amy could answer, a new sound filled the air. It was like 1,000 voices screaming at once, but the voices were inside everyone's head. Amy fell to her knees, clutching her skull. As pain shot through her mind, the psychic scream was coming from the Devourer ships. They were broadcasting directly into the minds of every living thing on Earth. But Amy realized the message wasn't meant for humans. It was meant for Prism. Through the pain, Amy heard a voice that was cold and hungry and ancient. It spoke in thoughts rather than words, but somehow she understood it. "Heartbearer," the voice said, "we have found you at last. Come to us willingly, and we will make your death quick. Resist, and we will devour this entire world slowly." Amy struggled to her feet. "I have to get to Prism. The Devourers are trying to take control of his mind." "Absolutely not," General Stone said. "It's too dangerous." But Amy was already running toward the laboratory building. Behind her, she could hear the general shouting orders to stop her. But the soldiers were too confused and scared to act quickly. Amy burst into the room where Prism was kept. What she saw there broke her heart. Prism was standing in the center of the room, but his body was shaking violently. The neural collar was sparking and smoking as two different forces tried to control his mind at once. Dr. Park was at her control panel, frantically pressing buttons. "I'm losing connection to the subject. Something is overriding my commands." Amy could see the battle that was happening inside Prism's mind. The military collar was trying to keep him obedient and empty, but the Devourer influence was stronger and more evil. It wanted to turn him into a weapon of destruction. "Let me help him," Amy begged Dr. Park. "I can reach him through our bond." "The collar blocks all outside mental contact," Dr. Park said, without looking away from her controls. "It's designed to prevent exactly what you're trying to do." Amy felt hopeless. Prism was trapped between two different kinds of control, and she couldn't reach him. Through the window, she could see more. Devourer ships landing in the distance. Soon they would send ground forces to capture Prism directly. Then Amy heard another voice in her mind. This one was gentle and wise and very old. "Young heart friend," the voice said, "do not despair. There is still hope." "Who are you?" Amy asked. Silently, "I am Elder Zephyr of the Lumina. I speak to you across the vastness of space because your bond with our young heart-bearer shines like a beacon. Even the crude device around his neck cannot completely sever a true heart bond. Amy felt a small spark of hope. Can you help him? Not directly. The Devourers are too strong, and they have had eons to perfect their mind control techniques. But you can help him. You are the key to his freedom and to Earth's salvation. I don't understand. How can I help? I'm just a human girl. Elder Zephyr's mental voice grew warmer. You are far more than that, young one. You are a bridge walker, one who can connect different forms of life. Your people call it empathy, but it is much more powerful than you know. Amy felt images flowing into her mind. She saw the history of the Lumina, an ancient race that had once been the guardians of many worlds. She saw how the Devourers had hunted them across the galaxy, corrupting and destroying everything they touched. But she also saw something else. She saw that a heart-bearer's true power could only be awakened by someone who loved them completely and was willing to sacrifice everything for them. The caller suppresses his abilities, Elder Zephyr explained. But if you can create a pure heart bond with him, one based on perfect love and sacrifice, that bond will be stronger than any technology. How do I do that? Amy asked desperately. You must touch him while feeling perfect love, with no thought for your own safety. Your tears must fall upon his scales, while you open your heart completely to his pain and fear. Amy looked at Prism, who was still shaking as the two control systems fought over his mind. Getting close enough to touch him would be dangerous. The energy crackling around his body could kill her, but she didn't hesitate. Amy ran toward Prism, ignoring Dr. Parks. Shouts and the warning beeps from all the machines. She threw her arms around Prism's neck, right where the collar was sparking and burning. Pain shot through Amy's body as the collar's energy burned her hands and arms. But she held on tightly, pressing her face against Prism's crystal scales. I'm here, she whispered. I'm here, and I'm not leaving you. I love you, Prism. You're my best friend, and I'll never let them hurt you again. Tears ran down Amy's cheeks and dropped onto Prism's scales. Where each tear touched, a small golden light began to glow. The light spread slowly across his body, fighting against both the collar's control and the Devourer influence. Amy felt the moment when her tears activated something deep inside Prism's nature. The neural collar began to crack and smoke as power, beyond its design, tried to flow through it. For just a second, Amy felt their bond snap back into place. She could sense Prism's thoughts again, and he could sense hers. In that moment of connection, Amy saw what the Devourers really were. They were creatures of pure hunger and hatred. They had once been like the Lumina, but they had chosen to consume other life forms instead of protecting them. They had grown stronger by destroying world after world, but they had also become empty inside. The Devourers feared the Lumina because the Lumina represented everything they had given up. And they feared Heartbearers most of all, because a Heartbearer could channel the sea. More golden light as Amy's tears continued to glow on his crystal scales. But the process was slow, and Amy could feel the Devourer ships. Getting closer, Dr. Park was screaming at her assistants. Shut down the system. The feedback is overloading everything. Sparks flew from control panels around the room. The machines that had been monitoring Prism were shorting out one by one. General Stone burst into the room with a squad of soldiers. Get that girl away from the alien, she ordered. But when the soldiers tried to grab Amy, bolts of energy shot out from Prism's body. The soldiers jumped back, their hands burned by the crackling power. I can't let go, Amy gasped. Her hands and arms were badly burned from holding onto the collar, but she refused to release Prism. If I stop now, the Devourers will take control of him completely. Through the broken windows, They could see Devourer ground forces landing near the base. The alien soldiers looked like walking nightmares. Tall, thin creatures covered in black armor that seemed to absorb light. They moved with deadly purpose toward the laboratory building. "They're coming for him," Amy said. "We have to get Prism out of here." General Stone was torn between anger and desperation. "The creature is our only weapon against these invaders. We need to use it." "You can't use him," Amy shouted. "That collar makes him weak. It cuts him off from his real power." "Then how do we fight these things?" Amy looked at the approaching Devourer forces and made a decision that terrified her. "You have to trust me. Let me remove the collar completely. Let me restore our bond. Together, Prism and I can fight them." Dr. Park shook her head frantically. "If we remove the collar, we'll have no control over the alien at all. It could turn on U.S. Prism would never hurt anyone who didn't deserve it," Amy said firmly. "But those Devourers out there will kill everyone on Earth if we don't stop them." A new sound filled the air, the scream of fighter jets engaging the enemy. Through the windows, they could see human aircraft trying to attack the Devourer ships. But the alien weapons cut through Earth's fighters like they were made of paper. One of General Stone's radio operators called out, "Ma'am, we're getting reports from around the world. The aliens are destroying every military installation they find. They're not interested in conquest. They just want to eliminate our ability to fight back." Amy felt a chill of understanding. They're clearing the way. Once they destroy Earth's defenses, they'll land their main force and start consuming everything. Colonel Hayes, who had been silent since General Stone took command, finally spoke up. "Maybe the girl is right. Our conventional weapons aren't working. If this alien creature is our only hope, we should use it properly." General Stone looked around the room at her panicking staff and the burning equipment. Outside, more explosions lit up the sky as human defenses fell one by one. "Fine," she said finally. "Remove the collar. But if that thing turns on us, I'm holding you responsible." Amy nodded gratefully. She pressed her face against Prism's neck and whispered, "Hold on, friend. This is going to hurt both of us." She grabbed the largest crack in the neural collar and pulled with all her strength. Pain shot through her body as electricity from the device burned her hands. But she could feel Prism's presence growing stronger in her mind as more of the collar broke away. When the collar finally shattered completely, Amy was thrown backward by a wave of energy. She hit the wall hard and slid to the floor, her vision blurry from the impact. But the bond between her and Prism was fully restored. She could feel his thoughts and emotions again, and they were overwhelmed with relief and gratitude. More than that, she could sense other lumina across the galaxy reaching out to them. Prism stood tall in the center of the room, his crystal scales blazing with inner light. His energy wings spread wide, filling the space with beautiful colors that danced like the northern lights. For the first time in months, he looked like himself again. But Amy could feel something wrong in their connection. The weeks of being controlled by the collar had damaged something deep inside Prism's mind. He was free, but he was also vulnerable in a way he had never been before, and the Devourers knew it. A new psychic attack slammed into the building. This time it wasn't meant for humans. It was aimed directly at Prism. Amy felt it like ice water, pouring into her mind through their bond. The voice that came with the attack was different from the one she had heard before. This one was stronger and more cruel. "Little heart-bearer," the voice hissed. "You cannot hide from Vex 9. I have consumed 1,000 of your kind. I will add your power to my own." Prism staggered under the mental assault. His beautiful light began to flicker as something dark tried to push into his thoughts. Amy realized with horror that the collar had left weak spots in his mind, places where another consciousness could take hold. Fight it, Prism. Amy called out. She tried to strengthen their bond, sending him all the love and support she could, but Vex 9 was too strong. Amy could feel the Devourer leader's will pushing deeper into Prism's mind like a poison. Prism's eyes began to change from their natural warm brown to a cold, empty black. "No," Amy whispered. "I won't let you take him." She ran to Prism again. But this time, when she touched him, pain shot through both of them. The connection between Amy and Prism had become a pathway that Vex 9 could use to hurt them both. General Stone and her soldiers backed away as dark energy began crackling around Prism's body. The Devourer influence was growing stronger every second. "The alien is being controlled by the enemy," Dr. Park said in panic. "We need to evacuate immediately." But Amy refused to leave. She held onto Prism despite the pain, trying to anchor his true self with her presence. Through their bond, she could see the battle happening inside his mind. Prism's memories were being twisted and corrupted. The Devourer was showing him false visions of his people being destroyed because he had failed to protect them. It was making him believe that Amy and the humans were his enemies. "Don't listen to it," Amy begged. "Remember who you really are. Remember the first night when I healed you. Remember watching the stars together." For a moment, Prism's eyes cleared. Amy felt his real personality fighting back against the invasion. But then Vex 9 pushed harder, and the darkness returned stronger than before. "Your human friend will die because of your weakness," Vex 9 whispered in Prism's mind. "Just as all your people died. You are failure, heart-bearer. You deserve only pain." Amy could feel Prism's despair growing. The guilt and self-hatred that Vex 9 was feeding him were like weapons cutting into his spirit. Worse, Amy realized that some of the guilt was real. Prism did blame himself for leading the Devourers to Earth. "It's not your fault," Amy said desperately. "None of this is your fault." But Vex 9's influence was too strong. The dark energy around Prism's body grew more intense. Amy could feel her friend slipping away from her, consumed by the Devourer's mind control. Outside, the sounds of battle were getting closer. The base's remaining defenses were falling one by one. Soon the Devourer ground forces would break into the building. Tech. Sergeant Paul Green, who had been watching the monitoring equipment, suddenly spoke up. "General, I'm reading massive energy buildup from the alien. If this continues, the whole building could explode." General Stone looked torn between fear and determination. "Can we contain it?" "Not with conventional methods," Dr. Park admitted. "The power levels are beyond anything our equipment can handle." Amy felt a tear run down her cheek as she watched Prism struggle against the invasion of his mind. She had fought so hard to free him from the collar, only to see him captured by something even worse. Then she remembered Elder Zephyr's words. The power of a heart-bearer could only be awakened through perfect love and sacrifice. But what if that same principle worked in reverse? What if she could save Prism by sacrificing herself? "I know what I have to do," Amy said quietly. She pressed her forehead against Prism's, ignoring the dark energy that burned her skin. Instead of trying to fight the connection to Vex 9, she opened herself to it completely. "Amy, no!" General Stone shouted. "Get away from there." But Amy was already diving into the mental battlefield inside Prism's mind. She felt Vex 9's attention turn toward her with hungry interest. "A human child dares to challenge me?" The Devourer leader laughed. "Your mind will break like glass." Amy felt the full weight of Vex 9's evil pressing down on her thoughts. The Devourer showed her visions of Earth being consumed, of her parents dying, of everyone she had ever loved being destroyed. The mental attack was designed to fill her with despair and hopelessness. But Amy had something that Vex 9 didn't understand. She had hope. She had love. And she had complete faith in her friend. "You're wrong about Prism," Amy said, her mental voice growing stronger. "He's not weak. He's not a failure. He's the bravest, kindest being I've ever known. And I believe in him." Her words hit Prism like rays of sunlight, breaking through dark clouds. For the first time since the attack began, his true personality fought back effectively against Vex-9's control. But the effort was too much for Amy. The strain of maintaining their bond while resisting a devourer's mind control was burning out her human brain. She could feel her consciousness starting to fade as darkness closed in around her. Amy's last thought was a simple one. Eye low. She could hear explosions and gunfire very close by. She was lying on the floor of the laboratory, and someone had covered her with a military jacket. Her head hurt terribly, and her vision was blurry. But the first thing she looked for was Prism. He was standing guard over her, his crystal scales glowing softly in the dark room. When he saw her wake up, he made his gentle wind chime sound and nuzzled her face carefully. "How long was I unconscious?" Amy asked. Through their bond, she felt Prism's answer. 2 hours. The battle had been raging all around them while she slept. She could sense his worry and relief that she was awake. Amy sat up slowly and looked around. The laboratory was a wreck. Most of the equipment had been destroyed, and there were holes blown in the walls. General Stone and her soldiers were gone. Only Sergeant Green remained, and he was sitting by the window with a rifle, watching for enemies. "Where is everyone?" Amy asked. Sergeant Green turned around. He looked tired and scared. "Most of the base was evacuated when the aliens broke through our outer defenses. General Stone ordered everyone to fall back to the command bunker. I volunteered to stay and watch over you." "Why didn't they take Prism?" "They tried," Sergeant Green said grimly. "But he wouldn't leave you. When they tried to force him, he got so upset that his energy started melting the walls. The general decided it was safer to leave you both here for now." Amy could feel Prism's emotions through their bond. He was angry and protective and determined. The attack by Vex-9 had changed something fundamental in him. He was no longer the gentle, slightly timid creature who had crashed on their ranch. He had become something powerful and dangerous. But she could also sense something else. Fear. Prism was afraid that his power might hurt Amy or other innocent people. He was holding himself back, trying to control forces that wanted to burst. "Free. What's happening with the battle?" Amy asked Sergeant Green. "Not good," he admitted. "The aliens have taken control of most of the base. Our weapons barely scratch their ships. They seem to be looking for something specific." Amy knew what they were looking for. Vex-9 wanted to capture Prism alive so he could steal the Heart-Bearers. Power for himself. The other Devourers were just clearing the way for their leader as if summoned by her thoughts. A new sound filled the air. It was different from the noise of the battle, deeper and more menacing. Through the broken windows, Amy could see a massive black ship descending from the sky. It was bigger than any of the others, shaped like a giant claw reaching down to grab the earth. "Vex-9, Amy whispered. "He's coming himself." Prism's energy wings flared with anger. Amy could feel his desire to fly out and fight the Devourer leader, but she also felt his hesitation. He was still afraid of what might happen if he used his full power. The massive ship landed in the field outside the laboratory. A ramp lowered, and creatures began walking out. Most were the same black-armored soldiers Amy had seen before. But in the center walked something that made her skin crawl. Vex-9 was tall and thin like the other Devourers, but his armor was different. It seemed to be made of living shadow that moved and shifted around his body. Where his face should be, there was only darkness with 2 points of red light for eyes. Heartbearer, Vex-9's voice echoed in Amy's mind. Come to me willingly, and I will spare the human child. Resist, and I will make her death last for days. Prisms. Response was a roar of pure rage that shattered every remaining piece of glass in the building. He stepped protectively in front of Amy, his scales blazing with light, but Vex-9 just laughed. Your anger makes you weak, young one. Observe. The Devourer leader raised one hand, and Amy felt an invisible force grab her. She was lifted into the air and pulled toward the window, helpless to resist. No, Prism lunged forward, but Vex-9's. Soldiers opened fire with energy weapons. The beams hit Prism and sent him tumbling backward. Amy fought against the invisible grip, but she couldn't break free. She was pulled through the broken window and suspended in the air above the field, where Vex-9 waited. Now you see the price of defiance, Vex-9 said. Your human friend will die unless you surrender your power to me. Prism flew out of the building, his energy wings carrying him toward Amy and Vex-9, but the Devourer leader was ready for him. More invisible force struck Prism and slammed him into the ground. You cannot win through violence, Heartbearer. I have consumed beings far more powerful than you. Submit and end this quickly. Amy could see Prism struggling to get up. The attacks from Vex-9's soldiers had hurt him badly. His crystal scales were cracked, and golden blood seeped from several wounds. But it wasn't the physical damage that was defeating him. Amy could feel through their bond that Prism was being torn apart by impossible choices. If he used his full power to fight Vex-9, the energy released might kill Amy and destroy half of Montana. But if he didn't fight, Vex-9 would capture him and use his power to consume Earth. There has to be another way, Amy thought desperately. Then she remembered something Elder Zephyr had told her. A heart-bearer's true power could only be awakened through perfect love and sacrifice. But she had thought that meant her sacrifice for Prism. What if it meant something different? Amy stopped struggling against Vex-9's grip. Instead, she looked down at Prism with all the love and faith she had in her heart. Prism, she called out, I trust you. I know you'll find a way to save everyone. You're not just my dragon. You're a guardian of the universe. Show them what that really means. Vex-9 tightened his grip, and Amy felt bones crack in her ribs. The pain was terrible, but she didn't cry out. She just kept looking at Prism with complete trust and love. And that's when her tears began to glow. The tears that ran down Amy's face weren't just water. They were filled with every moment of joy she had shared with Prism, every time he had comforted her when she was sad, every sunset they had watched together. The tears held all the love and friendship between a human girl and an alien creature who had found each other across the vast loneliness of space. The glowing tears fell through the air toward Prism. When they touched his wounded scales, something miraculous happened. The cracks in his crystal body began to heal, but more than that, his entire being began to transform. Light poured out of Prism like he was a star being born. But this wasn't the harsh, burning light of a weapon. It was warm and gentle and alive. Amy could feel other lumina across the galaxy, adding their power to his. Every heart-bearer who had ever lived, every guardian who had ever protected the innocent, was lending their strength to this moment. Vex-9 realized what was happening and tried to crush Amy completely. But Prism's transformation was creating a shield of pure love around her. The Devourer's grip couldn't touch her anymore. Impossible, Vex-9 hissed. No heart-bearer has accessed the full power for 10,000 years. Prism rose into the air, no longer needing his energy wings to fly. He was surrounded by light that made the sun look dim. When he spoke, his voice carried the wisdom of his entire species. You are wrong about many things, Vex-9, but you are most wrong about love. You think it makes us weak, but love is the strongest force in the universe. The light from Prism began to spread outward in waves. Everywhere it touched, the Devourer weapons stopped working. Their black ships began falling from the sky as their power sources failed. Vex-9 tried to retreat to his massive ship, but it was too late. The wave of love and life that Prism was channeling was more powerful than any weapon the Devourers had ever faced. "This is not over, Heartbearer," Vex-9 screamed as his ship began to crack apart. "We will return." "No," Prism said calmly. "You will not." The final wave of energy that burst from Prism didn't destroy the Devourers. Instead, it did something much more powerful. It reminded them of what they had been before they chose the path of consumption and hatred. For the first time in millennia, the Devourers felt love and compassion again. Amy watched in amazement as Vex-9's dark armor began to fall away. Underneath was a creature much like Prism, but ancient and scarred by eons of evil choices. The red lights in his eyes flickered and went out, replaced by natural orbs that held confusion and pain. "What have I done?" Vex-9 whispered. "What have we all done?" The other Devourers were experiencing the same transformation. Their ships stopped attacking and began broadcasting surrender signals. The terrible hunger that had driven them for so long was being healed by Prism's gift of renewed love. Amy gently floated down from where she had been suspended. Prism caught her in his energy wings and held her close. She could feel his exhaustion through their bond. Using that much power had drained him completely. "Is it over?" Amy asked. Prism nuzzled her gently and made his wind chime sound. Through their connection, she felt his answer. Yes, it was over. The Devourers were retreating, not to plan another attack, but to begin the long journey back to what they had once been. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. The attack on Earth had proved that humans were ready to join the larger community of spacefaring species. Other alien races began making contact, offering friendship and trade. Amy became Earth's first official ambassador to the Lumina. She and Prism traveled between worlds, helping to build bridges between different species. Wherever they went, they carried the message that love and understanding were